Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Adventure, Abduction, and Arrest by Tonya Kappes, narrated by Johanna Parker. Chapter 1. "Good morning," I greeted Bets Hager, Abby Fawn Bonds, Queenie French, and Hank Sharpe as they all boarded my little camper with a level of excitement due to our new adventure. Dottie is in Trail's Coffee, grabbing us some much-needed caffeine. Hank gave me a quick kiss before he climbed over the middle console into the passenger captain chair to ride shotgun. He had an armful of file folders that he put on the floorboard until he got his seatbelt on. I had a clear view of the coffee shop since I'd parked the small RV in the Laundry Club laundromat parking lot across the street. "How long has she been in there?" Bets Hager blew her bangs out of her eyes as she stooped down and peered out the windshield. Her shoulder-length wavy brown hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She wore a pair of pink yoga pants and sweatshirt to match. "Aren't we going to be cutting it close if we don't get on the road soon?"
"According to the schedule Rob and Michael sent, I've given us a little cushion in case we need to make some pit stops."
Hank searched through files and grabbed a stack of brochures from one of them.
"Here's a schedule for everyone."
Abby was closest to Hank's reach, and she took them, giving one each to Bets and Queenie.
"I like that outfit."
Queenie made mention of Bets's outfit. "I got it from the Tough Nickel." Bets brushed down the sweatshirt. "Great score." I loved the Tough Nickel thrift shop. Last weekend when I was window shopping downtown, Buck, the owner of the Tough Nickel thrift shop, had made the best seasonal display of any of the downtown shops. He had used spring activities going on and around the Daniel Boone National Park, where we lived, with a display of mannequins and hiking gear sitting in a kayak, along with a small tent scene.
"I wish I'd seen it first."
Queenie really liked Bets's outfit. Queenie lived in sweats. There was only a handful of times I'd seen her dressed in anything else. Today she was dressed in her usual going-out outfit, which was her dressing up. It was one of those silky 80s jumpsuits that swished with every move, and a matching headband that kept her short blonde hair pushed off of her face.
"Are you driving?"
Hank Sharpe's green eyes sent a bolt of lightning to my heart when he looked at me. "Nope." Anything I could do to get a little shut-eye before we started our big investigation into the missing person Hank was hired to look into was fine with me. I closed my eyes and snorted out a few fake snores.
"I figured."
He opened the door, carefully stepping out of the camper so he didn't accidentally hit the stack of files on the floorboard. I got out of the driver's side and waited for him with the door wide open. "You're so smart, Hank Sharpe." I winked as he came around the front of the RV. "Here comes Dottie," I said when I noticed her walking away from Trail's Coffee, balancing one of those cardboard coffee trays with one hand and a cigarette in the other. "Looks like she was talking to Violet Reinhammer," I pointed out after I'd gotten into the passenger seat. "And she's smoking." Abby had turned herself around, leaning on the back of the couch to see out the small RV windows behind them. When she swung back around, she hit Queenie in the face with her high-swinging brown ponytail. "Phew, phew!" Queenie spat, smacking it away from her face. "When she smokes that early, it means Violet stressed her out." Abby sighed and put her hand out when she noticed I was passing the missing person file back to her.
"I sure hope she didn't tell Violet what we were up to."
Hank adjusted his seatbelt. "No kiddin'." I reached over my shoulder to get my seatbelt, or she'd have it plastered all over the Normal Gazette and Channel 2 News. Violet Reinhammer would probably turn out to be a decent human being if I'd gotten to know her outside of her journalist personality. We'd become well acquainted over the years since I'd moved to Normal, Kentucky, and worked on a few things together, but we weren't a pair to call each other up and hang out. Not like I did with the Laundry Club ladies. Those were the ladies right here in my camper, my tried and true girlfriends, along with my amazing boyfriend, Hank. Of course, I couldn't forget Fifi, my little white poodle, who was still sleeping on my bed in the back. Yep, I lived in a drivable RV and owned Happy Trails Campground in the heart of the Daniel Boone National Forest in Normal, Kentucky. Literally, this was my home on wheels, which I'd been forced to live in, but it took the better part of a year to remodel it into the cute little RV it was today. I'd made it as cozy as a rabbit's den. It was small, but it was all mine and without a mortgage. It was perfect for me and Fifi. 99% of the time, the RV stayed parked at Happy Trails Campground, but not this week. Hank's private investigating services had been hired by Laura and Steve Tenney. Their daughter, Kyra, had gone missing while at Forest Bathing Therapy Retreat, and no one at the retreat would give them any answers. The retreat was in a different part of the Daniel Boone National Forest, which was the reason we'd piled into my RV, but once we were there, we had accommodations.
I enrolled us as employees.
Hank looked down at the GPS system to make sure we were going in the right direction.
Robin is under the assumption we are all there to become certified forest bathing therapists.
I've always wanted to be a therapist. Bets took the undercover gig very seriously. Nothing I wouldn't expect from her. She was the sensible and moral one of all of us. According to her file, Kyra Tenney went missing 2 weeks ago. Her cell phone's last ping was... Abby rattled off the location while Bets put the address in her phone. The exact place we are going. The muscles in Bets's face tightened.
Y'all ain't gonna believe this crap!
Dottie Swaggart had swung open the door. Smoke rolled out of her mouth with each word before she took one last drag. Queenie got up and took the coffee holder with all of our coffees in it so Dottie could snuff the cigarette out before she got in the RV.
I don't know if it's a lie or not. And keep in mind, you've got to consider the source.
She got in and slammed the small door behind her, locking it so Hank could start driving.
But Violet Reinhammer claims she's quit the Normal Gazette and Channel 2 News to go off to California for some big hotshot job out there. Something about making it big time. Career starting off.
Dottie shrugged. You mean to tell me she finally got the call? I asked with a slack jaw.
I reckon. I don't know.
Dottie fluttered her hand in the air just before she adjusted one of the pink sponge curlers in her hair and took a seat in one of the chairs at my little cafe table. Dottie apparently wasn't ready for the day. Or should I say her hair wasn't ready for the day.
You know, Violet, sometimes she's all hat and no cattle.
A lot of Dottie's vernacular was Southern phrases. Most of them I understood. And to say that she kept me entertained all the time was an understatement. She kept me entertained practically all the time since we were neighbors. She not only lived in a camper and Happy Trails, but she was also the longtime manager, and she did a really great job. Even with all of her grumbling, she was one of my dearest friends. I don't think she'd lie about such a big thing. Abby looked around for some agreement. Would she?
Do you still follow her on social media?
Queenie asked Abby, who was the social media expert of our group. Abby nodded.
I'm sure she put something on there.
Queenie made a really good point.
Ladies, we've got to hustle. Violet Reinhammer has made us late.
Hank was so smart not to blame Dottie's being nosy, because I was sure Dottie was questioning Violet in the coffee shop better than any litigator would do, making us get a later start than Hank wanted. Bets rattled off some alternative directions for Hank. Though he'd already started to drive, he must have decided to use her directions. We all hung on while he did a U-turn when he got to the end of the grassy median, so he could drive in the other direction, since downtown was one way on each side. We passed Trail's Coffee on my side, and I couldn't help but try to see in to check out Violet Reinhammer. I was curious because she tried so hard to find the next big story that would get her national attention with the Associated Press. I racked my brain for what stories she'd done lately, but came up short. The conversation moved back to why we were all here in the first place. Kyra Tenney. Kyra Tenney is 23 years old. Bets had dropped the Violet chatter and focused on the file Abby handed off to her, so Abby could take notes in the spiral notebook we used for times such as this. It was those times that led Hank to ask for our help. It was no secret I had enlisted the laundry club ladies to help prove I was innocent. When my ex-husband's body had turned up floating in the campground lake, I was Hank's #1 suspect. At the time, Hank was involved in law enforcement, and of course I looked guilty. The spouse was always the prime suspect, only I didn't do it. I had found these ladies a great group of women to lean on, and well, we just had a knack for snooping around, listening to gossip, and narrowing down the clues that led to real criminals. This wasn't our first rodeo. According to the file, her mom said she was trying to get her life back on track since Kyra's relationship had broken up. Also, her mom reports Kyra had started therapy at Forest Bathing Therapy Retreat. Bets read the information one more time before she laid the file in her lap. Hank, you're making us do therapy? Bets asked a question that seemed to be on all of our minds. When he mentioned a few minutes ago how we were going in as trainees, it was the first time we'd heard of it.
I'm not making you do anything.
He glanced back in the rearview mirror at the ladies.
I asked if you wanted to help me, and each one of you jumped at it. What is forest therapy?
Dottie rolled her eyes and crossed her arms over the bedazzled shirt she'd made for just this occasion.
Now, I ain't gonna hug no trees and talk to the plants like you see them tree-hugging hippies do. If I wanted to do that, I'd join Texas Commune out by the old train station motel, she grumbled.
I snickered, just thinking about Dottie out in the woods with Tex, the bare-chested chiropractor who had a successful business doing his work among the trees in the woods.
Want me to let you out?
Hank wasn't about to let Dottie's orneriness impede the investigation. She shook her head, which was half rolled up in curlers, and continued to take the rest out. Keep reading. I looked at Bats. Forest therapy is sometimes referred to as ecotherapy, forest bathing, grounding, or earthing, where one gets in touch with their feelings through techniques or treatments to use nature to improve mental or physical health. Bats read off of her phone. She must have used the internet to look up forest therapy just now.
Hellfire!
Dottie jerked up.
We all should have no problems because we live in the forest.
She shook her head, her lips pinched.
Who ever heard of such things as forest bathing? Heck, I'm a teacher of that stuff and didn't even know it.
That's right, I agreed. We do sit outside in the chairs with our face in the woods while we bathe in the sun.
You're dang right we do.
Dottie liked that. She snorted a few times. Seriously? Bats had a wide-eyed look. Her finger kept scrolling on her phone. It's honest to God a real thing. Tree therapy, or forest bathing, has been proven to lower heart rate and blood pressure, not to mention reduce stress and boost the immune system. She continued to read. The idea is to relax in nature away from the stress in your life. Even 5 minutes a day helps.
Then we should all have perfect lives.
Dottie just couldn't stop with the comments.
You should be able to be a model client.
Hank wasn't about to let Dottie's sour attitude about the concept get the group down.
Client?
Dottie released a huge sigh.
You mean to tell me you're gonna make me hug a tree? Yep, you will become one with the tree,
Hank joked. You missed Hank telling us how he told the lady in charge we were therapists in training. Abby fueled Dottie's fire, and she knew it. The smile on her face grew so big. Anyways, Kyra's mom also said they knew she was going to this retreat. Kyra called her mom every day, even before she went to the retreat. Laura, her mom, said in this statement she knew the calls were not going to be daily, since Kyra was busy in training, but Kyra's calls had completely stopped a couple of weeks ago. She called the retreat, and they said Kyra had left and not come back. Her things were still there, but she's not. Everything Bats was saying sounded a bit fishy to me on the end of the retreat. Bats continued. The owner, Robin Michaels, who Hank said he talked to, had told Kyra's mom it wasn't unusual for clients to pack a bag and hike for a couple of days. Going off the grid is what she called it. Bats looked at Abby to make sure Abby had gotten a lot of the major bullet points.
Off the grid for 2 weeks?
Dottie wore a bird-thin scowl.
Something is fishy.
Abby picked up her phone, typed, and then used her finger to scroll. Seriously, though, the cabins at this retreat place are cute. She leaned forward and propped up her elbows on the little cafe table with the screen showing to us. I turned around in my seat to take a look at her screen. What she showed us weren't cabins. They were yurts. I kept my mouth shut. Dottie would have a dying duck fit if she knew we were staying in what appeared to be pretty authentic tent-type dwellings that didn't look to have running water, toilet, or television. It wasn't the no running water and bathroom that would throw it. It would be the no television, where she couldn't see her crime TV shows. That is really cute. I did love how the photo she was showing was decorated. There was a really neat owl photo on the wall, with a cool wooden frame that stood out. The bed was dressed in what I'd consider that boho style, with all the browns and cream-colored designs. A rug lay at the foot of the bed, and a small cloth couch stood up against the round structure. Here's what we've got so far. Abby put her phone down in exchange for our clue notebook. We had a certain way of doing things, and even though we could refer to the file, it was much easier for Abby to put it all in the grid so we could just glance. I have Kyra's name in the big circle. Abby turned the notebook around. The diagram looked like the sun. Kyra's name was in the circle of the sun, and the sun's rays bore names like Robin Michaels and Boyfriend. Do we have the boyfriend's name? I don't think so, but I can get it from Laura. Hank mentioned Kyra's mom. By this time, Hank had driven to the entrance of the interstate, which would get us to the retreat much faster than if we'd taken the back forest roads. The Daniel Boone National Park was over 700,000 acres, spanning several towns. Though we lived in the area, most of it was woods, and using the forest roads would have taken hours, but been a much prettier drive. The extra hour taking the directions Bats had given Hank would give us some time before we had to be at the first session and let us start our little snooping brains in the right direction. This way, we could all go our different ways and see what we could find out on our own before we came back together so we could put what we found out in our notebook and see exactly what was similar and what looked a bit fishy. From what Kyra's mom had reported, it did seem unusual how Kyra called daily to not calling at all. Was she taking a solitude hike for days, as Robin suggested to Laura? Or was something more sinister going on? Either way, I knew we would find her. Chapter 2. Welcome to Forest Bathing Retreat. A woman with wavy red hair greeted us. A strand on each side was pinned to the back of her head. She wore a black tank top with a flower-patterned skirt that flowed to her ankles. No shoes. I'm Robin Michaels, and we are so glad to host your group. I'm Hank Sharpe. Hank greeted Robin and introduced each one of us to her as we filed out one by one. And that's Fifi. Fifi darted out of the RV, taking full advantage of the grassy field next to the parking lot. She darted around, giving each little blade of grass a quick sniff. You're the CEO of Hank's Laundry Club? Robin asked. All of our heads jerked to look at him. He'd left out that little part of our undercover investigation. Yep, that's right. Own a lot of laundromats, and these ladies are my managers. He'd really taken us undercover. That's right. Fresh as a daisy. Dottie spouted off some sort of motto before she lifted up her arms and smelled underneath her pits. That's why we are so happy to be here in the fresh air. Fresh air is hard to bottle up in a detergent. Dottie walked over to the nearest tree and wrapped her arms around it. Yep, feeling good already. She dragged her cigarette case out of her back pocket and snapped it open to take a cigarette out. My stomach knotted. Dottie was going to get us kicked out before we could get our knapsacks out of the RV. Robin had a nervous smile resting on her lips before it turned to a very disapproving look. She clapped her hands together loudly. A guttural gasp came from her. Fifi ran back over to see what she was missing out on and stopped in front of Robin like she was wondering what all the fuss was about. What on earth? A look of terror covered Robin's face. Earth. The cigarette hung immobile in Dottie's mouth. We love Earth. I picked Fifi up, prepared to get right back in the RV, sure Robin was going to send us home before we even got started. We do not allow smoking here at the center. I felt her anger as much as I saw it. I thought you said I could smoke, and by the end of our therapy I'd be healed and not want to smoke. She used her fingers to take the cigarette out of her mouth and pointed them at Hank.
All this fresh air was going to replace this nasty habit. Dottie could be more productive as a manager if she didn't spend so much time outside of the laundromat she runs, smoking.
Hank's brows lifted.
We're hoping therapy, and her wanting to become a forest bathing therapist, will change her actions as soon as she walks out the door, which is grab a cigarette.
I see. Robin's forehead puckered. You've sort of put me in a hard situation. You see, we don't allow smoking of any kind, if you know what I mean. And, well, I guess you can smoke outside of your yurt. 1 a day. But I don't believe you'll do it every day, because forest bathing will heal your need.
I'll take that 1 time a day right now.
Dottie grabbed the lighter from the pocket on the outside of the cigarette case and brought it to life. She puffed the cigarette to life, creating several smoke rings that were much more exaggerated than usual. Oh yeah, Dottie took pride in the smoke rings she could make. As you can see, we have the large white tent with a few chairs under it for group meetings. As Robin talked to us, she kept a good side-eye on Dottie. My friends and I looked around to see just what we were dealing with. I was sure we were all trying to decide where we'd wisely spend our free hour. There were at least 100 people milling about barefoot on the bluegrass. Most of them were dressed like Robin. The men were in loose linen-style pants. Some had their shirts off, and some wore white tees. All were barefoot as they eased up to a tree and stroked it, as though they were stroking a cat, or even my little Fifi. Some of them were sitting with their backs against the tree trunks, eyes closed, legs tented as if they were napping. We have an all-vegan menu. She waved us to follow her. On our way to the large white tent she'd pointed out, I looked up into a tree and noticed someone was sitting on a large limb, caressing the leaves. We here at the center are a collective soul, gathering heart and mind to connect to the truer root of our being. Her passion for her job was apparent in the love with which she spoke of it. We have many guests who are so talented in their daily lives as CEOs, such as yourself. She offered a gentle nod at Hank. But their true spirit is here among the trees, where their hobbies really outshine any sort of work life. She made air quotes around work. Once we reached the edge, she pointed at the far back corner of the tent. There, a group of people sat in a circle around a man who had a black bowler hat on his head, his gray hair sticking out. He wore a green shirt unbuttoned loosely over a white T-shirt, and a long black braided leather bolo necklace, ending in a nice piece of turquoise around his neck. He was strumming a guitar and singing low as the others in the group swayed. Their eyes were closed.
That man's milk is expired, and ain't no way am I going to go do some kumbaya. Now, I've got me some limits, and that is one of them.
She was getting all sorts of stares from the therapy clients with her puffing on her cig. What if Robin lets you smoke 2 cigarettes a day? I joked.
It'll take a whole pack for me to join in that.
Dottie snuffed out her smoke on the bottom of her shoe and put the butt in her palm. She reached over and took Fifi from me. If you want to follow me, I'll take you to your yurt. Robin seemed to hit another one of Dottie's nerves. We call our yurt the lodge.
I heard her say yurt earlier and thought she was saying yer, but I'd not realized she meant a yurt.
Dottie shuffled sideways next to me.
Now, I can't stay on no ground. I've seen how these hippie tree huggers live in the television, and I have sciatica, not to mention my new hip.
She tucked Fifi up under her arm and stuck her hand out to touch her hip.
What? I want to sleep in your bed in the RV.
Dottie gave me a long, level look. I will let you stay in the RV on one condition. I thought it would be a good idea to keep Fifi in the camper instead of the yurt.
What is it?
She glared, giving me the side-eye. You can enjoy the RV if you let Fifi stay in there with you. I gave Fifi a scratch on her head.
Done. I love this little girl.
She hurried ahead of me, happy as a lark.
See you at supper,
she hollered, heading off to the parking lot. I watched her snuggle Fifi up to her neck and say something. If only Fifi could talk. I'm sure she'd have a million stories about Dottie. Fifi did love her, that was for sure. Are you sure Dottie is really wanting to do the therapy? Stop smoking? She seems awfully resistant, Robin asked Hank, but her eyes were on Dottie and Fifi. I did tell you that everyone had to be on board with the program to make it effectively work, but I didn't realize we were dealing with a very big case with that one.
She'll be fine, Hank assured her. Now, whose yurt is whose?
Robin continued walking ahead, talking about the sessions they were offering us. She also mentioned that we would be joining the current group of students this afternoon and told us not to wear shoes we couldn't slip off easily. If you don't have slippers, which we prefer you to wear all the time if you must wear something on your feet, we do have some for sale in the conference center. She nodded and stopped in front of one of the yurts. Other than that, we believe the more you are one with the earth and grounded, the more you will learn. Abby, Bats, Queenie, and I nearly fell over each other as we craned our necks to see what was going on around us as we followed Robin in silence. This one is for you and you. She pointed at Queenie and me.
Thanks.
Queenie headed in first. All right, I'll see the rest of you in a few, I said with a secret smile, knowing we were all officially undercover and we'd fooled Robin. I walked into the yurt and threw my little duffel bag down on my way to the window. I wanted to see where Robin was taking Abby, Bats, and Hank.
This isn't so bad.
Queenie sat on the bed.
I guess we have to share the bed.
I can lie on the little couch. I turned away from the window once the three of them were out of sight. I recognized the couch from the photo Abby had shown us in the RV on the way here. It looks like they have the same furniture in the yurts. I noticed the framed owl image in Abby's photo was in here too. I really liked the photo, and it would be nice to look at while I was cramped up on the couch as Queenie slept in the bed.
Kyra could be anywhere here. It looks like a big place.
Queenie unzipped her duffel and took out her clothes to put in the small brown chest of drawers. I picked mine up off the ground and tossed it toward the couch's leg. I didn't bring anything to wear but the yoga pants and a few tops to go with it, since I thought we'd be hiking. From the looks of it, though, hiking or any physical activity appeared to be the last thing the people here were doing, which told me if Kyra was here, we'd find her pretty quickly. Did you think anything was strange from Hank's file? I asked Queenie and walked over to the little kitchen area where a clear glass milk jar with water in it sat on a counter. The yurt had little signs all over with information on how friendly all the products were to Mother Earth, and the water wasn't in plastic bottles. I filled 2 glasses with the water and took one over to Queenie.
The boyfriend breakup did make me pause.
Queenie took a sip.
I think we need more information on him if we don't find her here.
That's a good idea. I walked over to the door when I heard a knock. Bats, Abby, and Hank stood on the other side, all barefoot.
Welcome to our yurt.
I opened the door fully to let them in. We thought we'd go to the convention center to get some slippers. Take the opportunity to look around and see if we see her. Abby walked over to the coffee table near the couch and sat on the floor. She laid the file on top and flipped it open. She pulled out the photo of Kyra her mom had given Hank and handed it to Bats. Bats pulled out a roll of tape from her pocket and taped Kyra's photo on the owl photo, since it was the only thing hanging. I don't think tape will stick to the yurt walls. She ran her finger over the piece of tape holding the photo for good measure to stick. This will have to be our board while we are here, or until we find her. Kyra Tenney's first immediately apparent attribute was her teeth, very straight and bright. She had blonde hair parted on the side with a little wave to it. She had brown eyes decorated with eyeliner and some heavy fake lashes. Her brows were thick. She had on a pair of larger hoop earrings. I'm ready to go get those slippers and look for her. Time's wasting. I tapped my wrist like I had on a watch before I twisted around to look at Queenie. Queenie? I slipped my shoes off my feet.
Let me untie my shoes.
She sat back down on the bed and untied the double knot she wore in her laces. After we all took a closer look at Kyra's photo on our way out, Abby handed me the file and the notebook. I put it in one of Queenie's clothes drawers for safekeeping, just in case someone did walk in. I couldn't imagine anyone would, but you could never be too careful. There were several more people rubbing on the tree trunks, sitting against the trees, or simply walking along the path we had to take to the center. The center was a large wooden structure, like the yurt, open air with several wooden benches facing a stage. On the stage were 2 long banquet tables, each with 5 chairs. Sitting on the table in front of each chair was a name placeholder and a microphone.
Those must be the professionals.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?